Greetings, YouTube, and welcome to episode 18 or chapter 18 of the Encyclopedia Magica Volume 1. I shouldn't call it chapter because we're not even out of the A's yet. So this isn't like the chapters in the book. No, this is just the latest edition of this series, which is apparently going to take me to the end of time. So we're going to start at Arrow because I think that's where we left off. So we have a bunch of just random arrows. So there's like when a magic arrow misses its target, there's 50% chance it breaks, or yeah. After determining the magical properties of the arrow acquired, roll on the following table to determine the type of arrow. Note, corals and bolts are crossbow missiles. Who doesn't know? All right, whatever. Then we have some arrow types here, which I think are generic. I mean, like they probably have an explanation for a specific feature, but these are not magical characteristics like armor piercing, barbed, a bird arrow / bolt, blunt head, broad head, corded, Eka, E-K-A-A. I have no idea what that means, and I know a heck of a lot about weapons history. Fishing arrows / bolt, flame arrows, flights, those are just for long range. Frog crotch, that's a kind of a cool arrow. I've heard it said that it was used for cutting lines, like as cutting the bindings of armor. So you would fire it at a person and hoping to cut the silken cords that would hold samurai armor together so that the armor would literally fall off your opponent. I have no idea if it was useful in that regard. Grappling, that's fanciful. Hand coral bolt, heavy corals bolt, hollow tipped, acid arrow, dust arrow, okay, whatever. I guess like, yeah, dust, kind of magical dust maybe. Flash powder, gas arrow, pepper arrow, and poison arrow. And we have humming bulb. That's designed to make a screech or a whistling sound, often designed to signal or unnerve an opponent, or do both at the same time. Incendiary leaf head, light coral bolt, mail piercer. I don't know how a mail piercer differs from armor piercing. An armor piercing arrowhead would often be a long, thin, and have a square cross section. It would have no edges at all, really, and it would be hardened. So I really see no discernible difference between an armor piercing and a mail piercing. And it makes no sense to me. Because if you have that kind of a head, it will go through mail. It will. Major grapple, so better than a grapple arrow. This is a major grapple arrow. Medium coral message. A medium coral? So like, there weren't just light and heavy crossbows. There are also, the medium coral is supposed to like be a lighter load for a heavy crossbow, so it would go for, I don't know. Message arrow, okay. You could technically tie a message to any kind of an arrow if you wanted to. A minor grapple, so there's even giving you more grappling options. Normal, sheath, spiral, stone, stone biter, don't know what that's supposed to do. Stone flight arrow, okay. Sunet, S-U-N-E-T, training target arrow bolt, truka. So I think it's ka. It's ika and truka. So those are some Scandinavian region arrows, I guess. A wood biter. Isn't that any arrow? Wouldn't any arrow go into wood? Okay. And then wooden, which seems particularly a useless unless you're trying to like wound a creature only damageable by wood. Then we have some specifics. We have the Arborist's arrow. Arborist, the Hyperion, a Greek sage in the 6th century, once received a magic arrow from the god Apollo. The god enabled him to become invisible, cure disease, fly, riding the arrow, and divine the future. That's a really powerful arrow. Very useful. I wouldn't mind one of those. We have an acid arrow found in caches of 1d6. These +1 oddities are highly valuable. They transform themselves into a spray of acid when fired, doing 2d6 of damage to the target and soaking everyone within a 15-foot range of the impact with the arrow. I would probably give a saving throw to the folks in the region because, you know, there's the possibility that they avoid the splash damage from that. We have aggravation, which has no XP value, so which means it's probably a cursed item. Yes, this cursed arrow infuriates any being it hits. Now, I understand the point. Get it, arrow, point. I understand the point of this magic item. But I gotta tell you, you shoot me with an arrow and I'm still alive, I'm probably already furious. Anti-magic, only XP 60, gold 360. Grants a +2 bonus to attack rolls, but causes no damage if the target is struck. Instead, the arrow negates all magic within a 10-foot radius of the target for 3d10 rounds. So, explain to me why this is so cheap. XP 60, gold piece value 360. This is an anti-magic arrow that will completely neutralize any spellcaster for 3d10 rounds. That's a lot of rounds. That's an entire combat if you roll decently. If you just roll average, that's 15. And how many battles last longer than 15 combat rounds? Seriously, this is way undervalued. Apollo's, this is a epic arrow, so it has no values. Anyone struck by an arrow of Apollo's avatar must save versus death magic or become instantly ill, suffering a loss of 1d10 points per round until a cure disease spell is cast upon the victim. That seems actually pretty low level to me for an arrow fired by a god. All right, the arrow of attraction, if hit, cannot be removed from the victim's body until, dispel magic is cast upon the person. Meanwhile, the arrow begins to fester within the wound, causing infection and even death in the unfortunate being. So apparently it sticks with the attraction in the sense that it sticks with the person that gets hit. That's kind of sad. Arrow of biting, 100 XP, 500 GP. When this missile hits, it turns it into a poisonous snake. Right out of Conan the Barbarian. In addition to normal damage, the victim must make a saving throw versus poison or die. That's kind of cool. We have the black arrow of Ooze. Now, I-U-Z. I always pronounce that kind of as Ooze. I have no idea how you're supposed to pronounce that. Is it I-Ooze? But that's a name from old school D&D, really. That was a name that cropped up more than once in the annals of gaming, of Dungeons & Dragons. Carved from the bone of a black dragon, this enchanted arrow strikes with a +3 attack and damage modifier. The arrow reappears in the owner's quiver each dawn after it is used. This item is permanent unless lost to a special attack, form, or deliberately destroyed. Once a day, an archer can call upon its deadly powers, causing the targets versus saving death magic or die immediately. Good Alliance characters have a -2. Save at -2. The power must be summoned before the arrow is fired, and a miss wastes its magic for that day. This is more powerful than the one, that came from the bow of Apollo. That's kind of weird, but whatever. Okay, now we have, I apologize. Apparently I'm all sniffy today. We have the Arrow of Blinding, 20 XP, 120 GP. When the item is hit, the target explodes in a flash of light that blinds everyone within 60 feet for 1d6 turns unless a saving throw versus breath weapon is made. Okay, remember, this is an arrow. So you're going to be shooting a target, and you're very likely to be more than 60 feet away. Okay, so, and that's a big zone. And if they have crappy saving throws, and this is a cheap arrow, you could eliminate effectively the entire enemy force. Suddenly they're blind. That's undervalued. We have the Sword of Blinking, 200 XP, 600 GP. It's a very low ratio there. So with this talent, cannot hit any friends of the user, blinking in and out of existence until it reaches an enemy. So it's avoids friendly fire. That's kind of cool. Though you'd have. What if somebody's just in a bad mood that day? What if they pissed you off and they still your friend? Um, we have Bolts of Lightning, 200 XP, 1200 GP. This sounds like more of a standard uh, ratio. Once also called Thunderbolts, these bolts appear to be normal bolts until fired from a crossbow. After being fired, a bolt of lightning becomes a 7-foot bolt of lightning with a range equal to the maximum range of the arrow fired bow that fired it. Bolt fired from a heavy crossbow has a range of 240 yards, and a bolt fired from a light crossbow 180 yards. These bolts grant a +2 bonus on attack rolls and cause 44 hit points of damage if they strike a target. Save versus spell is applicable. If the saving throw is successful, only half damage. I'll say also all creatures within a 15-foot radius of this magic bolt hits must save or versus petrification. So bizarre saving throws. Or be stunned for 1 round to the ear-piercing clash of thunder, which accommodates the strikes. That's kind of cool. I mean, I don't know how much does that differ from the classic javelin of lightning. I don't remember off the top of my head. I can't remember. We have the bow breaking. No XP, 100 GP. So you give that to somebody's. You slip that into somebody's quiver. Breaks any bow used to fire it unless the bow makes a successful saving throw versus crushing blow at -4. So the bow's making the saving throw? How do you roll a bow saving throw? Now you could say that the holder of the bow is making the saving throw, but an object can't make a saving throw. It's poorly worded. We have the Arrow of Burning, 100 XP, 600 GP. All creatures are considered to be AC 10 against this arrow, effectively having no armor class. It's in 3.5 terms or path position. That would be like a touch attack. Although creatures with the high dexterity receive their armor class bonus. Yeah, with any successful attack roll, the arrow engulfs the target in a flaming shroud that does 46 damage, no save, affecting only the victim and a 1-foot radius around him for 1 round. Yeah, it's only the victim. Creatures that are touching the target when the arrow strikes or make a saving throw versus spells for half damage. All equipment on the victim is okay. You got to make it actually goes after the equipment as well. That's kind of powerful. Admittedly, I mean, 46 is a lot of damage. 600 gold pieces? That could be worth it. Arrow of Charming, 800 XP, 2000 GP, a strange ratio. The victim must make a saving throw versus spell or be charmed by the user, which is strange because they just shot you. Yeah, I know, Cupids, but they've just shot you with an arrow that causes you harm. Then we have Charming 2, item often made by priests of Aphrodite. Here we go, Aphrodite. This arrow has a +3 attack bonus, but causes no damage to the being struck by it. Any human, demi-human, or humanoid hit by an arrow of Charming is affected as if they were the one who fired it and cast a charm person spell upon them. Yada yada. No saving throws allowed at the first against effect. It does wear off over time. A detect charm spell notes the arrow's influence. Successful this spell magic cast by a 12th level magic user removes the charm. It can only affect creature types that are susceptible to charm person spells. Okay. It can only be used once. Yeah, that makes sense. It disappears. Always be in color. Always be red in color. Ah ha ha ha. With the heart-shaped arrowhead. Note these sorts of magical arrows may strongly resemble this one. Arrows of Charming are always found singly. One true love. What time is it? Okay, we're at 14 minutes in. And we'll go through the C's on this one. There's a lot of arrows in here. Arrows of Clairaudience. 20 XP, 120 GP. The arrow gives the archer the ability to hear sounds within range of the arrow's location. Like the arrow of Clairvoyance, this arrow is activated by saying the common word listen and shooting the arrow. The archer is then able to hear sounds from their arrow's location by covering his ears and concentrating. With 15-foot radius, air may be heard in this manner. Arrows can hear anything louder than regular breathing. Right within 240 yards, and its duration is 6 turns. That's powerful. 120 goals for a targeted, ranged with a 240 yards. You could listen. This is perfect for a non-magic user. That gives a lot of flexibility. And we have Clairaudience, which is the same thing as the other one. It also grants you infravision, which would be low light vision in some other versions, more modern versions. Limited to a 10-foot radius around the arrow's location. Again, 240 yards and 6 turns. Now, turns is 10 rounds. So that would be 60 rounds, and that's a lot of rounds. It's a lot of rounds. We have climbing, 300 XP, 500 GP. That's a very strange ratio. It's almost 1-to-1. This talent only functions if the missile is fired at an object. The missile securely fastens itself to any object it strikes and creates a magical 50-foot rope issuing from the point of entry. The rope supports the weight of any weight of climbers and disappears 1 turn later upon command of the user. The missile cannot be moved after it's hit and disappears with the rope. That's kind of cool. I kind of like that one. Now, when I think about it, would it be more effective than a levitation spell, cost-wise? You know what I mean? A levitation spell is a low-level spell, and that's effectively doing what this is, say if you're going straight up. Or even a levitation spell will still work across a gap. You just push the person. They can't move, but you could still shove somebody who's floating towards the location. So is this more efficient than a levitation spell? Then we have the Arrow of Connection, 50 XP, 300 GP. This 1 to 6 seems to be a common ratio in these. When fired, this arrow creates a magical supported rope extending from whatever the arrow hit in the archer's location up to a maximum of 300 feet. The rope appears to be float in midair and can support up to 3,000 pounds at one time. The rope is indestructible, well, that's handy, and lasts for 24 hours unless the archer releases it early with a command. When the command rope expires or is released, both it and the arrow disappear. I can't imagine many times when you really need to set up a fire and create a rope bridge that's going to last 24 hours. I really don't. But if you want to, for 300 gold pieces, you can. Then we have the Arrow of Curing, 200 XP, 500 GP, again a strange ratio. This missile is blunt and inscribed with a holy symbol. When it hits a living target, it inflicts no damage. Instead, it cures 2d6 points of damage and plus 2 extra points for each magical bonus of the missile. For example, if it is 5 is rolled for a curing arrow plus 2, the total points of damage would be cured are 9. So okay, so we have now gotten our way through the A's, A through C on magic arrows. We'll start with the D's the next time we return to this series. So here are the Encyclopedia Magica. This is episode 18. I hope you had fun, and I hope you'll return for the next one.